Daniel Whitmore had built his reputation on seeing what others missed. Market shifts before headlines, weaknesses before competitors, opportunities before they existed. Yet as he watched Emily Carter move between tables with quiet efficiency, he felt the unfamiliar sensation of having been the last person in the room to understand what had just happened. He remained seated long after his sparkling water had gone flat, his attention no longer on his phone, no longer on the delayed meeting, but on the waitress who had returned to refilling coffee, as if she had not just redirected the atmosphere of an entire dining room. Most people would have looked shaken. She looked precise. That was the word he kept returning to. Precise. Every movement had intention. Every step measured. When she reached table 9, she adjusted a fork that was already straight. When she passed table 12, she subtly moved a chair half an inch inward to clear the walking path. Tiny corrections. Invisible leadership. Daniel finally stood, slowly this time, testing the feeling that something important had just shifted. His suit was still damp from the spilled water, but he no longer cared. He walked toward the service station where Emily was entering an order into the terminal. Emily, right? She glanced up, surprised he knew her name, then nodded once. Yes, sir. Her tone remained neutral, but her eyes showed awareness. She knew this conversation mattered. Daniel is fine, he said. She did not respond immediately, which he noticed. Most people rushed to accept familiarity with him. She simply waited. You read the room before anything happened, he continued. Ow! She finished entering the order before answering. Not dismissive, disciplined, and she looked at him. People show intention before they show action. Daniel felt a quiet chill at the simplicity of the statement. That sounds like training. A small pause. Life experience, she replied. A cook called her name from the kitchen window. She acknowledged with a small nod, but did not break the conversation yet. Control again. Daniel lowered his voice. You changed where my chair was positioned. You blocked the walkway. You delayed me from standing. That was not random. Emily gave the smallest hint of a smile. Not pride, recognition. Random mistakes usually repeat themselves. Planned ones only happen once. For the first time that evening, Daniel Whitmore laughed quietly. Not loudly, not performative, genuine respect forming. You realize most people would have just said something dramatic to get attention. That rarely works, she said calmly. Important people are used to ignoring warnings. They react faster to inconvenience. That sentence stayed with him. Important people. She had not said powerful. She had not said rich. Important, as if status was simply a behavior pattern to her. What did you learn to see like that, he asked. She picked up a fresh tray, balancing it with effortless stability. You notice more when you grow up needing to. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, and when you learn that staying calm keeps other people calm. A manager approached then, thanking her again for handling the earlier disruption so professionally. She accepted with a simple nod and no story attached. No explanation, no credit claimed. Daniel watched that carefully. No performance, no need for recognition, just competence. As she began to walk away, he spoke once more. Emily. She turned. Yes. You prevented something tonight. She considered that for a second before answering. Sometimes prevention just looks like good service. Then she walked back into the warm light of the dining room. Disappearing again into the background, she seemed to control better than anyone in the spotlight. The restaurant slowly returned to its normal rhythm. But Daniel Whitmore no longer experienced it the same way. Because once someone shows you a hidden pattern, you cannot unsee it. And now he began noticing the same things Emily seemed to notice. The nervous tapping of a man waiting on a business deal. The forced laughter at a table where a partnership was clearly failing. The way a couple sitting near the window leaned slightly away from each other instead of toward each other. Small signals. Quiet signals. Signals he had always considered irrelevant until now. He remained at his table long after his original reason for being there no longer mattered. Watching Emily work with the same strategic calm he had only ever seen in high-level negotiations. She was not just serving food. She was managing emotional temperature. At table 6, she slowed her speech because an elderly man was struggling to hear. At table 11, she spoke faster because 3 lawyers were clearly in a hurry. At the bar, she placed a glass of water next to a guest who had not asked for it, but clearly needed it. Anticipation, adjustment, control through subtlety. Daniel realized something that unsettled him slightly. She was doing exactly what he paid consultants hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach executives how to do. Read people, adopt fast, reduce friction, increase cooperation. And she was doing it while carrying 30 pounds of plated food across a crowded dining floor. When Emily returned to clear his table, he spoke again, this time without the tone of a customer. "You ever consider doing something else?" She did not answer immediately. She stacked the plates first, order before conversation. Then she asked, "Something else like what?" "Something where that skill set pays what it is worth." She considered that without visible emotion. "This pays my rent, 40 hours a week. Health insurance after 90 days. Predictable." Daniel almost smiled. Predictable is not the same as valuable. She met his eyes again. Value depends on what problem you're trying to solve. That answer stayed in the air between them. Not defensive, not impressed, just factual. Daniel respected that more than any attempt to impress him. "You prevented a problem tonight most people would not have even seen." "Most problems announce themselves early," she replied. "People just do not listen when the announcement is quiet." Outside, through the tall front windows, flashing red and blue lights briefly reflected across the glass as authorities finished handling whatever concern had been quietly resolved earlier, and Daniel noticed Emily did not even turn to look. No curiosity, no need for confirmation. She already knew the outcome hours earlier. "Does that not bother you?" he asked, knowing something might go wrong before everyone else. She thought about that longer. "You get used to it," she said finally. "It is like hearing thunder before other people notice the clouds." That image stayed with him. Thunder before clouds. "And you just continue working," he said. She gave a small nod. Someone still has to serve dinner. That was the moment Daniel understood something fundamental. She was not trying to be impressive. She was trying to be responsible. Very different motivations. He reached into his jacket and placed a business card on the table. Not sliding it toward her, just leaving it there. No pressure. "If you ever decide predictable is not enough." She looked at the card but did not pick it up yet. "And if I do not call?" Daniel answered without hesitation. "Then I will assume you already know exactly where you belong." That earned the first real smile he had seen from her all night. Small, genuine. Then she picked up the card, not like an opportunity, not like a prize, but like a piece of information to be evaluated later, and slipped it into her apron before returning once again to the quiet work of keeping the room balanced. The unseen architect of a night that could have gone very differently if she had been the kind of person who only saw what was directly in front of her. By 9:15, the dinner rush had softened into the slower rhythm of late evening conversations, the kind that lingered over dessert and quiet confessions. And Daniel Whitmore still had not left, which was unusual for a man whose calendar usually moved in 15-minute blocks measured down to the second. Outside, the spring air hovered around 60 degrees, the city lights reflecting off the glass like a second skyline. But Daniel remained where he was because something about the night felt unfinished. Across the room, Emily Carter was finishing her side work, restocking sugar caddies, aligning menus, resetting tables with the same careful attention she had shown all evening, never rushing even though her shift had technically ended 20 minutes earlier. Daniel noticed that too. Most employees watched the clock. She watched the environment. When she finished wiping the last table, she removed her apron, folding it neatly instead of stuffing it into her locker like the others. Small discipline, small signals. He approached as she reached for her coat. "You stayed longer than you had to." She shrugged slightly. "Loose ends turn into problems if you leave them for someone else." That answer sounded familiar to him. It was the same philosophy he used in billion-dollar negotiations, just spoken without ego. "Do you always think that far ahead?" he asked. She slipped her arms into her coat, a simple navy wool coat that had clearly been maintained carefully over several winters. "Not ahead," she corrected gently. "Just aware of what could happen if nobody does anything." Daniel nodded slowly. That was leadership, not authority, responsibility. "You know," he said, "most people would have talked about what happened tonight." She looked at him calmly. "Talking does not make it more useful. Recognition usually matters to people." She gave a small, thoughtful pause. "Safety matters more." That answer stayed with him longer than anything else she had said. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the quiet hum of the restaurant filling the space. A dishwasher running in the back, a server laughing near the bar, ordinary sounds, yet Daniel felt as if he were standing next to someone operating on a completely different frequency from the rest of the room. "What did you want to be?" he asked finally before this. She did not pretend not to understand. She thought for a few seconds. "Someone useful." "You already are." She gave the faintest shake of her head. "Useful in a way that lasts." That was the first time he sensed something deeper, not regret, not frustration, but unfinished direction. And what stopped that? Her expression did not change, but her voice softened slightly. Life gets expensive around the same time responsibility shows up. That was all she said. No story. No complaint. Just reality stated like a weather report. Daniel respected that restraint more than any dramatic explanation. He reached for the door as she approached it, holding it open without thinking about status or habit, just instinctive respect now. Cool air entered as they stepped outside, the sounds of traffic replacing the soft music behind them. For a second, they stood under the warm glow of the exterior lights. "Emily," he said, not as a customer, not as a billionaire, just as a man who had recognized another capable mind. "You changed the outcome of something tonight without needing anyone to know." She looked toward the street, thoughtful. The best outcomes usually look boring afterward. Daniel almost laughed at the truth of that. "If you ever decide you want a different kind of boring," he said, "my offer stands." She considered that, then gave a small nod. Not agreement, not refusal, just acknowledgement. "I do not make fast decisions," she said. "Neither do I," he replied. She started walking toward the subway entrance half a block away, steady pace, shoulders relaxed, just another person heading home after work. But Daniel understood something now that he had not understood when he arrived that evening. Some people command attention, others command outcomes. And as Emily disappeared into the moving crowd, he realized she was the second kind. The next morning began the way most of Emily Carter's mornings began, with quiet routine and careful timing. The 6:30 subway ride downtown, the smell of coffee from a paper cup that cost $2.75. Her small apartment left exactly as she had arranged it, because order in small things made larger things easier to manage. She noticed the same things she always noticed. The tired nurse gripping the overhead rail after a 12-hour shift. The construction worker reading messages from his daughter's school. The college student pretending to study, but clearly worrying about something else. Patterns, signals, human weather reports. By 8:15, she was already tying her hair back inside the employee locker room at Hawthorne Grill, preparing for another shift that would look ordinary to everyone except her. Routine was not boring to Emily. Routine was information. When she stepped onto the dining floor, she immediately sensed something different. Not danger, just attention. Her manager, Robert Hayes, usually too busy to notice small details, approached her with unusual seriousness. "Emily, someone called this morning asking about you." She did not react visibly. "What do they want?" "Just asked if you worked here." Did not leave a name. She nodded once. "Information stored. No speculation. No fear. Just another variable. Anything else?" Robert hesitated. They sounded professional, not a complaint. She gave a small nod and continued preparing her section, aligning chairs, checking salt shakers, resetting the environment the way she always did. Across town, Daniel Whitmore sat in a glass office 38 floors above the city, reviewing reports that normally held his complete attention, but today his thoughts kept returning to a waitress who understood situational awareness better than half his executive security consultants. His assistant paused at the doorway. "You asked for the background review." Daniel did not look up immediately. "And no criminal record, no financial issues, consistent employment history, community college courses in behavioral psychology about 6 years ago. Did not finish the degree." That caught his attention. Why not? No record explaining that. Daniel leaned back slightly. That fit the pattern. Interrupted trajectory. Capability without platform. He closed the folder. "Cancel the rest of my morning meetings." His assistant blinked slightly. "That never happened." "Reschedule them for tomorrow." "Yes, sir." Back at the restaurant, Emily noticed another small shift. Two men in business suits choosing a table where they could see both entrances. Not unusual by itself, but their posture said assessment, not dining. She did not stare. She adjusted a centerpiece instead. Observation without attention. One of the men eventually approached her. "Emily Carter." Not a question. She met his gaze calmly. "Yes. Mr. Whitmore asked us to deliver a message. No pressure. No expectation." He handed her a sealed envelope. Professional. Respectful. Then they left without ordering anything. Emily did not open it immediately. She finished taking an order first, then delivered 2 iced teas, then adjusted a table that wobbled slightly. Discipline before curiosity. Finally, during a quiet 30-second window, she opened the envelope. Inside was a simple handwritten note. No company logo. No contract language. Just one sentence. "Capability deserves opportunity when you are ready." And a time. Friday, 10 in the morning. No address. Just a phone number. Emily read it once. Then again. No excitement. No anxiety, just evaluation. Then she folded the paper carefully and placed it back into the envelope. That was when another server asked, "What is that about?" Emily gave the same calm answer she always gave when something uncertain appeared. Possibility. Then she picked up her order pad and continued working, because possibility, like danger, was something you prepared for quietly. Emily did not call the number that day or the next because decisions that change direction deserve distance from emotion, and distance requires time. So she continued her routine exactly as before, her alarm at 6, her coffee measured carefully to last the week, her subway ride filled with the same quiet observations that had always been her real education. But now there was something new, a question she did not rush to answer. On Wednesday afternoon, during a slower lunch shift, she sat alone in the employee break room during her 15-minute break, the sealed envelope resting beside her sandwich as if it were just another object. She read the note again, not for excitement, for intention. The wording mattered. Capability deserves opportunity when you are ready. Not when he was ready. Not when the company was ready. When you were ready. That told her something important. Respect always reveals itself through wording. Across the city, Daniel Whitmore was doing something equally unusual. He was waiting, not calling, not sending more messages, not applying pressure, because he understood something most powerful people did not. The wrong kind of urgency destroys trust. If she was who he believed she was, she would move when she decided the timing was correct. By Thursday evening, Emily noticed something else. She was being watched less like a curiosity and more like a potential investment. Not in a threatening way, in a measured way. One of Daniel's security advisors had returned as a normal customer, sitting quietly, testing whether her awareness had been luck or skill. She noticed him within 12 seconds. Same posture, same evaluation behavior. This time she did nothing obvious. She simply maintained normal service while making one small change. She placed his check before he asked. Prediction confirmed. He left with a different expression than he arrived with. Later that night, her manager approached her again. "You have Friday morning off if you need it." She looked up slightly surprised. "I did not request that." He smiled slightly. "Someone suggested it might be useful." She nodded slowly. Information confirmed. Still no emotional reaction. That was her strength. By Friday morning, the city felt different. Not because anything had changed outside, but because inside, Emily Carter had reached a decision point. She stood in front of the small mirror in her apartment, not checking appearance, checking readiness. Navy blouse, simple slacks, comfortable shoes she could walk miles in if necessary. No attempt to impress, just preparation to perform. She finally called the number at 9:15. One ring. Immediate answer. "Good morning, Emily," Daniel said, as if he had expected that exact minute. "Good morning, Daniel," she replied, same calm tone she had used in the restaurant. "No intimidation." No, just two professionals acknowledging a conversation. "Do you have an address?" she asked. A slight pause of approval on his end. "Direct. Efficient. Car will meet you outside your building in 20 minutes. "That will not be necessary," she said gently. Another pause. "Interest. I prefer to arrive on my own." Daniel smiled slightly in his office. "Boundary setting." Another confirmation. "Then I will text the address." "Thank you." No small talk. No persuasión. Just logistics. At 9:58, Emily stepped out of the subway 3 blocks from Whitmore Systems headquarters. A 72-story glass structure reflecting the morning sun, like a symbol of a world she had never expected to enter. She did not stop to admire it. She checked traffic flow, entry points, reception layout visible through the glass doors. Always the same process. Awareness first. At 10 o'clock exactly, she walked inside. Not like someone hoping for a chance, but like someone prepared to evaluate one. The lobby of Whitmore Systems was quieter than Emily expected. Not silent, but controlled, the kind of quiet created by expensive materials and careful design. Marble floors that softened footsteps, glass walls that reflected confidence, security desks positioned not just for safety, but for psychological presence. Emily noticed all of it within seconds. The receptionist greeted her with a professional smile. "Can I help you?" Emily gave her name without explanation. The receptionist's posture changed slightly, almost imperceptibly. Then she nodded. "Mr. Whitmore is expecting you." Not surprise. Confirmation. Emily was issued a visitor badge, temporary access, limited clearance. She noticed the color difference immediately. Blue stripe, not executive level. Logical, appropriate. She clipped it to her blouse without comment. The elevator ride to the 38th floor took less than 40 seconds, but Emily used the time the same way she always did. Observing. 2 employees discussing a deadline. One pretending confidence. One actually confident. Stress signals. Leadership signals. Same patterns. Different uniforms. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped into a hallway lined with quiet efficiency. Assistants speaking softly. Glass offices showing people solving problems worth more money than she had seen in her lifetime. But Emily did not slow down. Environment does not change the rules of observation. Daniel Whitmore was waiting near the conference room instead of behind his desk. Another signal. Respect is often shown by removing barriers. Right on time, he said. 10 o'clock means 10 o'clock, she replied. That earned a small approving nod. Come with me. He did not take her to a formal boardroom. Instead, he chose a smaller strategy room with a simple table and 2 chairs. Knowing to medastion layot. Conversation layout. Another signal she stored. Daniel placed 2 folders on the table, but did not open them yet. Before we talk about anything else, he said, I want to understand how you think. Emily remained standing for a moment before sitting, not out of hesitation, but because she was evaluating the request. About what? Yesterday, he said, you entered this building and looked at 3 security cameras without turning your head directly toward them. Why? Emily answered without hesitation. Cameras show you what a company fears losing. Daniel smiled. Slightly. And what did you conclude? You fear internal mistakes more than outside threats, she said calmly. More cameras pointed inward than outward. That answer held silence in the room for 3 full seconds. Not because it was dramatic, because it was accurate. Daniel opened the first folder. Inside were profiles of mid-level managers. These are people I trust, he said. But trust is expensive when misplaced. I want someone who sees early warning signs. Someone who reads rooms before problems happen. Emily did not touch the folder yet. Why me? Direct. Necessary. Daniel did not hesitate. Because you change the outcome of a situation without authority, without tools, and without needing credit. Emily considered that carefully. What exactly would I be doing? Risk awareness, culture assessment, behavioral pattern analysis. You would report directly to me. She finally opened the folder, scanning the pages with the same quiet concentration she used reading customers. And if I say no, Daniel answered simply, then you go back to your life and nothing changes. That answer mattered. No pressure. No trap. Emily closed the folder gently. And if I say yes? Daniel leaned back slightly. Then we see how far observation can take someone who already knows how to use it. For the first time since entering the building, Emily allowed herself a small breath of consideration. Not excitement, not fear, just the recognition of a doorway that only appears once in a while. Finally, she asked one last question. Why does this matter to you? Daniel's answer came without corporate language. Because most disasters start with something small that everyone else ignores. A quiet pause followed. Then Emily gave the smallest nod. Recognition meeting recognition. Emily did not answer immediately because serious decisions deserve silence before commitment. And Daniel Whitmore did not interrupt that silence because he understood that pressure reveals insecurity while patience reveals confidence. The city moved outside the glass walls, traffic flowing like data, people moving with invisible deadlines. But inside the strategy room, time seemed to slow into something more deliberate. Emily finally spoke. I would need to understand the limits. Daniel nodded slightly. Of what? Authority, she said. Observation without the ability to act is just awareness. That answer made Daniel smile with unmistakable approval. You would not manage people, he said. You would manage attention. When you see something early, I listen early. That mattered. She asked the next question without hesitation. And if I am wrong? Daniel answered just as directly. Then we learn early instead of late. No punishment language. No ego. Just outcome thinking. Emily stood and walked slowly toward the window, looking down 38 floors at the moving streets below, not impressed by the height, just thinking. People change when they know they are being watched, she said. I would need to stay invisible. Daniel answered immediately. Your title would not exist on the public directory. You would attend meetings as an analyst. Nothing more. She nodded slightly. That was correct. Influence without spotlight. After another quiet moment, she asked the question that mattered most. What happens if I see something involving someone powerful inside the company? Daniel did not hesitate. Then they become someone I need to know about. No hesitation. No exceptions. That answer decided more than any salary could. Emily turned back toward the table. I will try it for 90 days. Daniel did not celebrate. He simply extended his hand. Agreement between equals. 90 days is enough to see patterns. She shook his hand once. Firm, professional, no ceremony. Within an hour, she was sitting in a small temporary office with a simple desk, a company laptop, and access credentials limited to observation reports. No large welcome, no announcement email. Exactly as she preferred. By noon, she had already noticed 3 things. A senior manager interrupting others too often, signaling insecurity. A team that stopped speaking when one specific director entered the room, signaling fear. An assistant who knew more operational truth than her title suggested, signaling hidden information flow. She wrote her notes simply. No dramatic language, just signals and probabilities. At 3:30, Daniel received her first report. Only 1 page. No recomendations, just observations. At the bottom, she had written 1 sentence. Teams fail quietly before they fail publicly. Daniel read it twice, then once more. That was exactly why he had brought her here. Across the hall, Emily attended her first meeting as a silent observer, sitting near the end of the table, saying nothing, writing nothing during the discussion, only watching. Who spoke when? Who avoided eye contact? Who agreed too fast? Who waited before answering? The same patterns as the restaurant, just different uniforms. After the meeting, one executive asked her, "What department are you with?" Emily gave the same answer she always gave when the truth was unnecessary. Operations support. Close enough to truth. Invisible enough to work. That evening, as she left the building, carrying nothing but a small notebook and the same calm expression she had carried into the restaurant days earlier, Daniel watched from his office window and understood something rare. Talent was common. Discipline was rare. But awareness combined with humility was almost impossible to find. And for the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar. Not control, not ambition, relief. Because somewhere in the building was someone who noticed storms while the sky still looked clear. By the end of the first week, nothing dramatic had happened, which Emily Carter considered a good sign, because real stability rarely announced itself, and real problems rarely arrived with warning signs that everyone could see. She continued to arrive at 9:58 each morning, always 2 minutes early, never exactly on the hour because she believed readiness mattered more than appearance. Her routine inside Whitmore Systems became as structured as her routine at the restaurant had once been. Observe first, speak last, write only what mattered. By the second week, something small appeared. Not a crisis, not even a mistake, just a pattern. A procurement manager approving unusually fast vendor renewals without discussion. Not illegal, not dramatic, just different from normal behavior. Emily did not report it immediately. 1 data point was noise, 3 was a signal. By the 3rd similar approval, she sent Daniel a short note. No acquiescence, no conclusion, just 1 sentence. Speed sometimes hides questions. Daniel read it during a meeting and said nothing. But later that afternoon, he quietly asked for an internal review that revealed nothing dangerous. Just a manager overwhelmed and rushing decisions without realizing the long-term risk. Training was assigned. Process improved. Problem prevented before it became a headline. Daniel understood the real value then. Prevention never looked impressive. It just looked quiet. By the 30th day, Emily had mapped the informal influence network of the company better than most executives understood it. She knew which assistant could stop a project with 1 unanswered email, which engineer everyone trusted even without a title, which department solved problems and which ones delayed them. She never wrote names dramatically. She wrote patterns. Trust flows here. Fear blocks here. Information stops here. Daniel began adjusting leadership meetings based on her quiet notes, never mentioning her role, never exposing her presence. That was part of the agreement. On day 63, Daniel asked her 1 question during their weekly 15-minute review. Do you miss the restaurant? Emily considered it honestly. I miss the simplicity. He nodded. This is more complicated. She gave a small, thoughtful nod. People are the same. The stakes just have more zeros. That answer stayed with him. On day 89, he asked the question he had been holding back. Will you stay after the trial period? Emily did not answer immediately. She had already decided, but decisions deserved the same calm delivery she applied to everything else. Yes, she said finally. On 1 condition. Daniel smiled slightly. Of course. I remain able to say when something feels wrong, even if it is inconvenient. Daniel did not hesitate. That is the only reason you are here. That was enough. 3 months after a dropped tray had quietly changed 2 trajectories, Emily Carter received a permanent access badge. Same building, same quiet posture, same awareness. No announcement, no celebration. Just a new routine built on the same skill she had always carried. That evening, as she left the office, Daniel happened to cross the lobby at the same time. Funny thing, he said. Most people in this building think success looks like confidence. Emily adjusted her coat slightly. Confidence is loud, she said. Competence is quiet. Daniel nodded slowly. And which one changes outcomes? Emily gave the smallest hint of a smile as the elevator doors opened. The one that notices before everyone else. She stepped inside and disappeared into the moving machinery of the city. Still the same person she had been before any title existed, because titles had never been the point. Awareness had always been the point. And sometimes the most important person in the room is the one who sees the problem before the room even knows it exists.